This is the E Free Lethbridge podcast. Welcome to the E Free Lethbridge podcast. It's so great that you're joining us today. We've got a great packed full show for you. But before we kick things off, let me just introduce the gang that we've got joining us. We have the service pastor for the family service, the most community-minded person I know, Mark Dick.
Hello, friends. Great to see you.
We have the service pastor for the Church at 6 service, the Young at Heart, Luke Watson.
Greetings.
And drum roll, please, the Wonder Woman extraordinaire, Glenda Postman.
Oh, this is so weird.
This is so weird. It's so weird having.
You guys all have a signature like wave.
Yeah, can you
Luke
have
salutes and like I don't know what to do. Like,
how about stand up and show everyone your cape, your Wonder Woman?
Oh yeah.
And
we should make her a cape.
Yeah, we should.
No, we're not making it.
We'll pull out one of those costumes in the basement, Glenda.
Okay.
No, she has a Scooby-Doo costume or something.
Tinky Winky. I got Tinky Winky in the basement.
Tinky Winky. Who's the fourth? I hear four voices. Who's the fourth person?
All right. Well, I'm your host, Levi, and let's kick things off with a fun morning question. So today's fun morning question. Can you guys share a story of a time when you guys screwed everything up or screwed something up, but no one ever found out?
I'm stuck on Tinky Winky costume, but fine. I can move on. Let me see if I can move on. So I actually so when I was done my first year of Bible school, I moved out here to Alberta. I'd never been on a tractor, never done any of that kind of stuff. And this farmer that I was working for said, hey, who happened to be my friend's dad, said, hey, here, get in this tractor. Here's this 60-foot cultivator. You need to cultivate this field. But never have been in a tractor, never have pulled anything in a tractor. And around the outside of the field was like a main line, so like big pipe. And so I'm driving and thinking, well, he wants me to get pretty close to it. And I run the last 15 feet. My perspective was a bit, I didn't know how to drive a tractor with a cultivator on the back. And I ran over this pipe. Well, the cultivator's heavy and ripped that pipe. And so I keep driving thinking, maybe he'll never know. Yeah, I pulled back up to it, looked, called him out there, had to tell him because I thought he'll know. I'm the only one out here with a cultivator. So I ended up having to drive to Bull Island or somewhere to get new main line and all that kind of stuff. So I screwed it up, thought maybe I could do it and nobody would find out, but I didn't realize that water was supposed to be pushed through there and into the wheel move. So then I had to tell him it was me.
Oh, no.
Yes, Mark. That reminds me, buddy, when I first moved out here to Lethbridge, I worked at a buffalo farm on my days off, a buffalo feedlot. And I was driving the feeder truck. And it was like, of course, classic feedlot. Mirrors are broken, mirrors are cracked. So old truck. So I couldn't see. So anyways, I pulled in to get lunch and I backed it up. And I forgot there was this fence post in the ground. So backed up, drove over the fence post. And then pulled forward and started driving away. And the fence post just basically knocked off the transmission, just started dumping transmission fluid all over the ground.
No.
And it stayed there. I killed it. I killed the truck. I felt so.
Yeah, was there any, could you hide that or was the pool?
That's the thing. I couldn't hide it though because it was sitting right there in front of the barn, just leaking.
City boys try to turn country.
That's right, buddy. You're a city slick.
I remember I was like in grade 1. It was like, I think the second week of school. And you had like your assigned seat. And so I was sitting by the seat that has the little red emergency bar handle. And they had told us like, don't pull the handle. You're not supposed to pull the handle. And I remember for a week I sat there thinking, I wonder what that handle would do.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And so then I decided on week 2 that I should just lift up the handle and see what happened. So I was like in grade 1. So I like pulled up this emergency handle and the bus came to a screeching halt and the bus driver stomps to the back and he's like, who pulled that handle? I'm sitting right beside the handle.
Yeah, me.
And I'm
As a
like,
little one.
I'm not fessing up.
What?
I didn't tell.
He didn't catch you then.
Nope.
He didn't know who it was.
Silence.
Well done. You know
Nope,
what?
just
When I
sat
feel
there.
like this is a confessional, a bit of a release for you to get that out, get that on the table. You're forgiven.
Yes. Amen. Gunnar, have you ever pulled a fire alarm in school or anywhere?
I might have once. Yeah, maybe once.
My
don't
kid
know.
did it here.
On the bus.
My-
I've pulled the fire alarm on the bus.
Did
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that little alarm is like the alarm
Yeah,
on
that's
the
like a fire
bus.
alarm.
And there was
Where's
nobody
fire
sitting
put
with me. Like I was just by myself in the seat. Like, why didn't they say, we know it's you? But I was just like,
Wasn't me.
You were so cute.
I don't know. I don't know who it was.
Oh,
I don't know
that's
who
funny.
did that.
I
How
sprayed
about
a fire extinguisher once.
Which kid pulled the fire alarm, Mark?
I think it was Elias. We were here, like it was one of our first
remember
weeks
that.
here. It was a church at 6 thing. That was when we still had our old children's ministry. Middle of the service, Elias gives her a good yank. Everybody out of the church. It was a good time. Yeah, I think me and Sid Coop's kid did it like back-to-back weekends or something like that. It was awesome. Yeah.
We shouldn't be giving anybody any ideas.
No, I know. Actually, it was a good one. Somebody did it during Sid Coop's message, and dude didn't skip a beat, man. He came back. He was killing it 45 minutes. He came back and finished up his last 20 minutes. Didn't like, we're back. Let's kill this. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's awesome.
Man, so this is not my story, but I remember one time in grade 7, I was in school and it was like 5 minutes until we were supposed to like go out, like school was done.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off and we all go and we're on the field and we're all lined up and every single person that I talked to was talking smack. Who pulled the fire alarm? This is ridiculous. Now we're here way later than what we have to. Like everyone's super mad. And then like fire trucks are showing up. We see smoke. We're like, oh, like there's actually a fire, but still like, who's the idiot that started a fire? And like, we're just getting so mad. And then, so finally we're dismissed and I go and my mom is there to pick me up. Like I would take the bus home, but my mom is there. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, so like this is before she could just text me. Like we had like a brick phone. And so then I go in the car and she's like, I'm like, why are you here? Like I can take the bus home. And she's like, oh, that fire, your brother started it. So yeah, then we were there for a lot longer. Yeah, my brother started the fire and it was crazy. Like we had to go to like this fire prevention meeting for people who like start fires and like,
right?
Yeah, we like to watch these videos. Like as a family, we had to do that. It was ridiculous. Like, I'm like, this is not me. This is my stupid brother. Yeah, no, he's not.
Arson Anonymous. Arson is anonymous.
That's what it felt like. We sat in a circle. Legit, we sat in a circle with other people who started fires.
No.
And watched a fire movie and talked about how dangerous it can be.
What's it called? Backdraft?
It talked about stuff that was, yeah, anyways.
Like
so what he did was he took a lighter and an axe can and his friend was in a cupboard.
That's classic.
In a classroom and he sprayed and lit it and it shot fire at his friend. But in the cupboard was a whack load of paper towel and lit the whole cupboard on fire. Yeah.
That's a legit problem. That's not starting a fire. It's accidentally lighting a fire.
Yeah.
Accidentally.
Paper towel in a closet.
Anyways, okay. So my story, this is leading up. So my older brother, he got into a lot more trouble than I did. So it was easy to pin things on him. So I just got my license, my learner's license, and I had to drive with an adult. My grandma had given us her older car. And so my brother was driving that around, but I wanted to go driving. This is like Christmas. I think it's actually Christmas Day. And my grandma's there and she said, well, I'll go driving with you. And I'm like, okay. So she says, go start the car or whatever, and you can mess around in the driveway. We had a long driveway, so mess around the driveway. So I'm driving back and forth in the driveway because I don't know, I'm a stupid kid. And so I throw in reverse, and we have a trailer in our driveway, and the stairs are out. And as I'm backing up, the stairs scrape the whole side of the car at the bottom. And I heard like the whole time. And my grandma is walking out, and then I like kind of pull forward, don't say anything to her. And she didn't hear it, I guess, but she just gets in the car, and then we do our thing, drive, and I don't say a word about the scratch.
No.
Nothing. Fast forward a few months later, my brother's driving that car. Bam! Huge accident, totals the car. He's not hurt, so it's good. Other people are hurt.
And you're off scot-free.
I just don't say a word. Just
wow.
Yep. And no one knows. I think I was married when I finally told my parents that I scratched that car.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That they didn't notice or didn't say anything.
They didn't notice. They didn't say anything. Yeah.
That's good.
Whew. So sometimes it works to
confession time.
Not speak up.
Kidding. You know what? This is maybe what people need. Maybe we should call this like confession corner. We could meet with people just to like, hey, you want to tell us some of your deepest, darkest fire alarm pulling stories? We can
get things off the chest.
We're just gonna record it for you.
Yeah, we're gonna reach out.
That's a means of recompense.
That'll be the podcast next week.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's time to get to the important stuff. Let's get to the message. All right, so this week we had Luke preaching. So great to have you with us, Luke, so that maybe you can challenge us a little bit more. But you challenged us on our understanding of hallowed be your name. So we're in the Lord's Prayer. We're in a 6-week series right now that's going through Matthew 6, 5 to 18, the Lord's Prayer. And this one was a doozy, I thought. It was a good one. Because you challenged us to look past the classic answer for hallowed be your name. And so that's where I kind of want to go first. Luke, you actually challenged us. You said that maybe we have a shallow view of what this means. And so in the past, what has this line meant for you guys?
Yeah, for me, I think I probably said this, but it was like classic. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Don't say OMG. That was it. It's funny, Levi. At church at 6, I was joking. Like I said, like the God of the universe, almighty, all powerful, who's in heaven. And the first thing he tells us to do is say, don't swear, guys. And then we laughed. I'm like, I thought that was funny. I'm like, am I the only one that thought that's what this meant?
I never thought that's what that meant.
Good.
Me neither.
I wouldn't have said the Lord's name in vain, peace in that. I think that's
connected
biblical,
that.
but I'm not sure I connected it to the Lord's Prayer. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would have been. I'm not sure I would have been as as such a low or like what? How did you frame the question? Like a simple view, shallow view of it, because it's in the Lord's Prayer. But I always get like bogged down by it because I don't know how to say hallowed be, like hallowed properly. I don't know if I'm ever saying
hallowed.
It right.
Hallowed.
Hallowed.
I think it's actually hallowed.
See, hallowed.
But
see, and then I feel like I'm talking about
too hallowed.
Hallowed. I think
my pronunciation sucks.
Yeah, see, this is where I always got bogged down by this. So I was nervous of the Lord's Prayer because of these words. But
Mark skips over it because he can't pronounce it.
Hey, we're not using the Lord's Prayer, okay? I can't pronounce that. Down to forgiveness, down to daily bread. 2 things. But I like, for me, there probably was a shallowness purely on the grounds of I didn't actually think and take into account the where it comes in that. So I think that there was a shallowness because I didn't think about it deep enough, but there's a reality in it, a posture, and all of the pieces that we'll get into place because of where it is in the Lord's Prayer. I think that.
I think probably too that I've always thought that it was like Moses taking off his sandals, like this is holy, and so I think it's always been like this weird thing. Like first of all, it starts with Our Father, and then suddenly we move to like we've got this statement of intimacy, and then we've got this what felt to me like distance.
Right. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
I like for me it was so Luke, you listed primacy, petition, and posture, and I never got the petition and posture out of this. It was always primacy, like God's name be made great. That's kind of what I always read it as, or what I was taught about it. And I guess it does fall in line with maybe don't use the Lord's name in vain, but I never connected those two. So, I mean, I've learned something about what people think sometimes, so that's good. Moving forward, but yeah,
maybe I'm the only one that
primacy,
thinks that though, Levi. That's funny.
Thinking, working with youth, I think that there's probably some youth that probably would tie those together. So that's good for me to know. I
wouldn't even take swearing as taking the Lord's name in vain. Isn't that funny? Like I would think even the swearing pieces, this is maybe a side note, but like I think the vain thing is light. Like don't take the Lord's name lightly.
Yeah, that's good. Got it. Yeah. But
Anyway,
the way you think, though, we've understood it. Yeah, it means lightly, but at least I've always understood that. Don't take a name, like don't curse the name of God.
Yeah.
You know what? That's probably served you well.
You never swear.
It's maybe protected you. You didn't have to go to confession corner about using the Lord's name in vain.
So just bringing things back here a little bit. But I really do love that we were talking a little bit about even how to say the word, because I think that people might be a little bit afraid of even reading the word out loud or like saying it. And it's a part that maybe people would skip. And so don't be afraid of a word. Don't be afraid of a word that you don't understand. Look it up. Like even today, as I was prepping for this podcast, I was like, I literally looked up the grammar of hallowed. Is it hallowed? Like just because I'm like, one, my degree is to teach English. And so I'm like, okay, like I really need to know what the difference is here. And then Luke was talking a little bit about like how Jesus isn't saying that God is going to make his name himself great. Like that's not what he's saying here. And then I'm like, okay, well, like the actual words, hallowed is past tense. So like just like trying to figure out what's the actual wording here. And so do some digging, research the word a little bit. And to be honest, as for pastors here, it doesn't matter if you say hallowed or hallowed. We all got it. We all understand. So you mentioned these three things: primacy, petition, posture. You said that those are the three things that Jesus is teaching through this statement within the Lord's Prayer. You said that Jesus, in so many different situations throughout the Bible, throughout this book in Matthew, says basically that he wants to make God's name great in every circumstance, every situation. It usually lines up with Jesus referring to hoping that this situation would make God's name great, praying that this situation would make God's name great. I feel like that's something that we've lost today. Like the Lord's Prayer, we might pray through a lot of these things, but this making God's name great in all circumstances, we usually lose that. Why? Do you guys think that's because of our pride and narcissism in North America, that we want to make our name great more than God's name great? Or what's your thoughts on this?
I love that observation, Levi. That's I think part of it too is, as I was talking about, I don't know, getting like looking at my sin, my circumstances. I think that the narcissist, all of a sudden it just becomes about my life, my situation. And when we lift our head, we howl the name. I don't know. I just feel like there's a bigger picture that I'm praying into when we hallowed, right? And part of it for me too is because Levi, we're sinful, right? We're prideful, we're narcissists. This is the way this is our nature. And I think as we begin to just ponder how gracious and merciful God's been to us, we start recognizing, man, Lord, you are great. I'm not, if that makes sense. To really ponder, how has God been gracious to you? All of a sudden we start going, oh yeah, he's great. I'm not, So for me personally, I think that's where I'd go with that. But
I think there's just so many ways we want to enhance our own self, like my own self, my own reputation. And so we become so, maybe that's just our default. I don't know. Is it our default? Maybe it's our default that we just are self-focused and self-aware. I mean, that's not a negative word, but first that we think of ourselves. So I wonder too at times, like, am I willing to risk my own reputation for God's, or am I just like, am I so self-protective that I'm willing to that I'm willing to be second to that? I'm just not sure that's my default.
Definitely not my default.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
I think that's like classic, right? We protect ourselves. I think even that would be descriptive of the world today, right? The world today says, look out for like who first, for yourself always. So I think that that's not actually outside of what we're taught from like young, from young children on, what we're taught to like do. So that's probably like a curious thought in it, and probably part of how we're trained. I think Luke said something about we're sinful or broken people, and pride or narcissism or whatever you want to is like, I mean, that's probably part of that. I would suspect that we all have some of that, whether it's more of in some or something that, is something that some people struggle with more in their own life than others. But that is like innately taught us as well. I think that's like one of the raising children, whether you're in it or you're going to, or you already have, one of the things that we try to teach our kids is it's not all about them all the time. And so I don't know, maybe there is like a protectionist thing that we have to like allow God to, or offer to God, or work at having God tear out of our hands. I don't know, out of our hearts. I would say that there are those pieces. The protected.
Sometimes we're not aware of all those things either, because we just let our thoughts like run. Right. So we just have this running dialogue. Yeah. I mean, we're always listening and hearing and talking in our heads. So we don't always know what that dialogue is saying, and we don't always catch it, I think, sometimes. So I like that Luke talked about like, what is being done in secret. So what we do in secret changes every aspect of how we live. So I was thinking a lot about that. I thought that is so true. And so what do I do when my mind is like, just, I'm washing the dishes or just doing something, like, where is my mind going to? I'm like, it's funny because like worry, it kind of like will come up, like I'm worrying or trying to like figure out how to manage a situation, or, but that was like, it just kind of reminds me of where I don't believe, or where I'm not practicing my belief. So maybe in situations like that, I'm like, I actually can go to worry.
Totally.
What's that book called? What's it? Get Out of Your Head or something like that. What's it called?
Get Out of Your Head.
Isn't it like a lot of what isn't like? There would be a percentage even that a lot of what this self-talk or this inside our head spinning is like a lie most of the time, isn't it? It would be like
you have like so many thoughts a day, and most of them are repeated every single day. So these thoughts that are just like again and again and again, like you'll notice the things you thought about yesterday, you're probably thinking about in some regard today too. So I'm like, what is in secret? Like what really is in secret in my head? So I really thought about that since yesterday. Like what is in my head? And then what is this telling me about what I think, what about me? And what is this telling me about my relationship to God? And I'm like, oh God, I'm gathering all these things close to me, and I'm not praying, I'm not releasing them. I felt really convicted, really also really encouraged to like lean in. This is where God wants to meet me. So
yeah, those are good.
I really like that.
That's good insight.
So like going off that, how do we battle then this desire to enhance our own reputation? And then lift up God. So we're talking about the secret, like the things that we're doing that aren't visible to people. How do we battle against this reputation piece where we desire to enhance our own?
Just quick. I'm not sure if all of our own, so in secret thoughts necessarily are about our own pride or like enhancing our, does that make sense? Like, I think that not every thought that we have in secret or everything that we think about in our own private minds would just be for our own narcissism or about ourselves or to get to, does that, it's not
definitely like, no, I totally agree. Sure. Yeah.
But are they showing areas of unbelief? So I can think about things like with my family, with my kids, like, I mean, it just will roll and roll and roll in my head. And I'm like, this is God's invitation into his ground. But I just feel like I'm gathering the pieces next to me. I don't know.
So, okay, let me go one step further. Would you say, and I don't disagree in my first thought, that the worry piece or the holding on to these pieces are actually places where we're elevating ourselves and not elevating God? Would that be a fair statement? Like when we worry about our kids or our whatever those things are and like try to control the things, would be these sort of places? Would that jump be too far? Like in places
I think it's showing what I really believe about God.
Yeah, I think.
Do I really believe that he can be sovereign even over this?
Right. Yeah,
or do I think that there's something I need to do in it? Or I need to control because he's not.
So then in essence, we're saying, well, you can't, so I will. Then we elevate ourselves over elevating God in it. That's good. That's helpful. Thank you. That's clarity.
I feel like when we talk about secret, for me, I compare it to the non-secret. So I think often when I desire to enhance my own reputation, even if I want to make God's name great, if I want to hallow God's name, if I'm doing that in front of other people, in a way, I feel like I'm also lifting up my own name.
Yeah.
So I'm with other people and I'm, hallowed be your name as I do this project. Like, may your name be great through this project that I'm doing. But where am I at in the secret? Am I actually doing that with every project that I'm doing throughout the day as I work? Am I going, oh man, may God's name be made great through this project? And so I do this like comparison, and I have to go, oh man, I need ways to battle this desire of making my name great, because often I think in the secret, I'm not hallowing God's name. And so, do you guys have any like tricks or tools or little reminders? Like, do we write this? Do we tattoo this on our bodies? Like, yeah. Ooh, I shouldn't have mentioned the tattoos.
The tats. Put a tattoo. Hallowed be thy name.
Yeah.
You're good. We might need that reminder. I might need it more like right in my face somehow. If I could tattoo that on your foreheads, would be easier for me because then I see it all the time.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and like the tools, and I think that's probably why Jesus said start here. Like if we just, you're right, a reminder somehow to just get in the habit of this, like, because I always go to my needs, my thing, what's going on in my life, right? And if we could actually get into the habit of starting with, okay, how is God making his name known to me today or this week? I think that will change worrying about what's coming next or worrying about, all these things. But yeah, you're right, Levi. What's a practical tool?
I looked up like where hallow is, like this idea of hallow was used in scripture. And so one of the things it talked about was when Moses struck the rock, which always perplexed me a little bit. I'm like, the guy just hit a rock and he can't go into this land. But he's been promised. Like this is, I'm always struck by that. But it did make a little bit of sense to me because it's basically saying, and so it says Moses did not hallow the name, which talks a little bit about he didn't believe in him. So this idea that hallowing also means trusting what he says, and that not trusting is the opposite of hallowing. So that's reminding me, like, wow. I'm really not trusting at that point when I'm like gathering the things next to me for me to control. So I'm really not hallowing the name. It's not just, it seems to have an element of trust. I don't know if I'm reading that passage wrong, but.
That's funny because I took notes and one of the first word I wrote down was trust. I have that written down. That's just that word. I'm like,
really?
Yeah. So that's interesting that you, it might be in like the frame of some of the, like these sort of questions that we're talking about, but wondering if hallowing his name, and I wrote this down, was trust. Maybe we need to just trust that's the.
Definitely. This is who he is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I feel like that's a really good connection. And I mean, I definitely see that from the passage. So I don't think you're off base, Glenda or Mark. I think that's a really good pull-in. So Luke, let's move along here to the petition part. Luke, you mentioned at one point that when we hallow God's name in petition, this is an alignment of our hearts with God's heart. So in a practical sense, how has this looked like for you guys in your prayer life?
Well, I think an easy one right off the bat is when I'm praying for people to come to know the Lord. When I'm praying for my neighbor or my friend or a family member, I mean, this is something that God wants to do. So I'm like, all right, Lord, do this. Reveal your Holy Spirit to this person. Make your name known to my friend here, right? So I think that would be the easiest one to go after. But another one, I think God wants justice in our world. So if we're praying for somebody in our life that is not being treated justly or something like that, that's another thing. Like, Lord, this is what you want to do, so do it. And I love that part. I love that it's a petition because then it takes the pressure off of me. It still invites me, I think, to participate, right? As like, now I'm aligning, I'm getting involved, but I know you want to do this, God. So do this and use me in whatever way you can, but do this. This is what you want to do. So I think for me, Levi, that was probably the part that challenged me most, but also offered this kind of like, it gave me a renewed boldness in my prayer life. Like, let's start petitioning the Lord to do and be who he says he is, Let's go for it.
It's interesting. It's interesting when you describe it that way. I think the petition is and the aligning with God's. We're almost saying like, just take us there. Like the trusting that to be like, hey, the petition, we want to do your will. Take us there. Like just show us. And I think there's like another level of like the willingness to go there. To like, I prayed it. Now I'm just going to follow. I'm praying these things. I know I'm trusting that I'm aligning with you, and now I'm just going to follow. And I think that's like that's awesome. It's really cool.
I really like the tie-in to like hallowed be your name. I like the tie-in like about what the name meant. I thought that was really good. That the name is like all of who God is. That it isn't just maybe that's where I don't identify with the swearing part, but anyway, but that this is his attributes and his character. Like this is his attributes and his character that we are hallowing. It's not just his name. It's like his personhood. I guess that is and I think it was like I said in the beginning, I feel like there's like this tenderness that starts and then this formality. I don't know why I feel like that's formal. Hallowed be your name. But I think that there's like the word for holiness is the same word that we use, like that's for marriage or the betrothal. That's like the same word in Hebrew. And so there is this like, there's this marriage between me and God in hallowing this name. It's like a covenantal agreement that comes together. And so I was like, oh, this feels different to me now. I think I'm learning something about God in this, that this is also God saying, like, it's him bringing us in the same way that he started with our Father, like Abba. Like, so I was like, oh, there's gentleness around that.
Yeah, it's not the distant thing.
It's this intimacy and closeness. And I know, Luke, you talked about that like, but it's hard for me to figure out how this exists. This like, oh, we've got this holiness of God, this amazing part that we're in awe of. And then we have this intimacy, and it's hard to know what that means. But I think that this picture of a marriage covenant, or this, because a covenant really is kept by God, and it's invoking his name onto that, like his name, his personhood, and then he's doing that with me. And that is me hallowing his name too. So, all these little layers of this.
I love the personal call there, Glenda. And I think we hallow the name of God. We'll hallow the name of God more in our prayer life, in our life, when we recognize just what God has done for us. Like I think of my friend there, that girl, and I'm like, she's hallowing the name of God because she realizes, man, God rescued me. He set me free. Like, he has changed my life. Right. So there is no, like, sure. Yeah. She's going to deal with pride and reputation, but she knows God did this, not me. And that's why I'm making his name great. Like, I love that personal aspect. We need to personalize this.
Yeah. I think because it's a formal thing, it's like a ritualized thing. Sometimes, like, it's felt formalized to me in lots of ways.
Right.
So like taking it apart like this has been helpful for me to see the way that it's this intimacy between me and God.
Yeah, I talked about that this week too when we did our family service. He actually, by using the our Father, the word that he uses for Father is actually this invitation to intimacy. But I also went to that personal piece of like, we actually, if we're invited into the intimacy, like God actually shows up in all of the way his name is described, like in our lives. When we start, I said to parents, tell your kids today about how God has showed up in your life in a way. Call him whatever the name is: tender, intimate, caring, kind.
Wow, praise God, Mark. Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, I think those are like the pieces, right? That's actually what, by using the name Abba, or by using the name, Father, that's actually what this, Jesus is saying. Speak to him this way, because this is who he is. The name, like, it's not like name, like I said in the thing, and like you said, like Luke describes. Well, I can describe who Luke is by your name, but only because I know you. But to anybody else, they're like, oh yeah, Luke. Yeah, that's it. It's really like, whereas God is like, when you say God, there's a whole layers and layers and layers of description and of who that is, and what that actually, who he actually, what the name defines actually, and the care. I like that you connected his character to it. That's
yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
I feel like I really loved, Luke, that you brought up injustice. That when you are praying in petition for justice, that's a time when you have felt your heart align with God's heart. And I see that. I think that's one of the best examples, actually, of when we hallow God's name in petition, and we come before him. Say it's your friend that is sick. Your friend's sick, and you are petitioning that this injustice that he is feeling by being sick and not healthy, you're praying for the healing of him. That feeling of just crying out to God. And I feel like that is the time when our hearts finally align with God's heart.
Yeah, that's good.
When we actually get to feel the same pain that God is feeling for our friend. And the same thing with, say, racial injustice, when we align our hearts and we start really crying out to God, going, it's just not fair. And you feel the same pain that God is feeling. I think that actually moves us into empowerment. when we align our hearts with God's heart, it moves us into this empowerment piece. And I think that is really the petition part of this. Like that moves us into the posture. And so when we posture ourselves before God and we recognize who he is and who we are, this makes us bow down and worship, and it lifts our head. Luke, you actually used the word empower. So how can we see God as both set apart and holy, and then also close and intimate, all in the same thing? So we've gone from this like primacy to this posture of like intimacy. Yeah. How can we do both? Like, how do we see both?
Yeah. And that's what the prayer does. It puts both these things in front of us, right? Like, yeah. Oh man. But I think like I'm just spitballing out here, but that awe of who God is, the awe and the wonder, like for Moses, both was happening there, right? There is a humbling, right? I take off my sandals, I come before God, and it's personal and it's close. And I mean, the Bible talks about how Moses would come off the mountain just glowing because he would spend time with God. And I'm like, so there was the Almighty, there was the closeness, and then he came down with some empowerment. Yeah, there's totally. I'm just spitballing here. Help me out, Glenda and Mark. And
well, this is us coming like in all of our weariness and exactly as we are, and coming to this God like and really feeble. What can I do? And yet I'm coming to this God who really holds it all. So I think that's just an acknowledgement of like dependence. Like
right. Good word.
For everything that comes today, God, I need you because you can. Yes. Because you can, and you have a way and a plan and a will and a like, and I can't. Like it's just this dependence.
Yeah. I think we can. I think even so, we can look biblically and say you did, and you have, and even in our own lives, I feel like we can look and say you have. You aren't just the God in heaven.
Yeah, that's
you
good.
Actually have showed up. You showed up as maybe bad because he's always there. I have recognized you in all of my pieces, or I have not all because I am selfish and I do my own thing and think that I've accomplished things on my own, but I have recognized you in the things. I've seen you in those things. When I acknowledge that you're there and that you are in control and that when you show up and that you've guided and that those are the, like, I can look back and even in the places when I hadn't at the time done that, I can look back and say, oh yeah, you had that too. You like, that was actually your thing too. So I think that I love actually that, Glenda, you said it's us living in this mess, like not mess. It's us living in this dichotomy or this trying to figure it out, because it actually is like how we live. That's actually what this what he's calling it. Like that's, I think that's how we live. We live with this. We know we worship a great God, and we have a God who walks beside us all the time, this super God, but he also wants to like hold us and say, hey, child, you're not listening. And like, you should go, like, this is what you should do. And you should like walk with me this way. You're not listening. You're doing your own thing, but I'll still be there when you stub your toe. I'll pick you up and take you because I've done it in the past. Remember? Is that like,
I love that, Mark. I've done it in the past. Remember that's a good.
And then, like, the question, like, is that empowering? Like, do you guys think that's empowering? How do you think that's empowering, Luke?
Yeah, thanks, Glenda. Great question. Yes, I do. I think when we behold that and remember what God has done in the past, it's empowering, because it's like he's done in the past, he's going to do it again. And I guess I think that's where, again, it goes back to the primacy thing for me. Is it's like if we hold God as great and we just, what has he done in my life? And the more time we ponder that and think about that, I think maybe not easier. That's not the right word, but we're risen. We could step into the day. We could step into our life.
Confidence.
Yeah.
The confidence.
Well, it's sure and trustworthy and seen. Like these are the pieces that like we get. Like it's that we get to approach this. Like we are seen and not just like distracted, like with laser like focus. The like God is seeing me like with this trustworthy, who has the power to do it kind of movement. I mean, that really empowers us first for sure to pray, but I think also to live like we were created, like we really do reflect, we really are image bearers.
Right.
I think when we can do that too. So I think that's what you meant by empowered, that we're image bearers.
Moses comes down the mountain radiating the glory of God, right?
Like transformed by that. Amazing. Like physically. Yeah.
He was transformed, right? He encountered it. And the more we encounter it, it's going to transform us.
Yeah.
Mark, you were saying something there that caught me and actually caught me as I was speaking or whatever, Thursday or whatever you guys watch. But the piece about like God wants to take your past. I don't know if we're going here, Levi, and make his name great through it. And we might not see it at first. And we might even not see it to the other side of eternity. And that really struck me because I think I have so many questions. God, where are you? Why didn't you do this? You made it clear that this is who you are and what you came to do. And my friend still died. Or I can remember this grade 7 girl when I was early on in ministry, she passed away of cancer. And it just like, I really petitioned God on that. I prayed for healing. It didn't happen. I'm like, how could you possibly make your name great through something like this? And I think some of those questions actually don't get answered until we're on the other side of eternity. You know, I think sometimes we like to say, oh, God's going to use all these things for his glory. Yes, indeed. But that actually might not be in this lifetime, because many of us limp along with these unanswered questions and these unanswered prayers, it seems like.
But would a question, or one of my questions for that would be, and maybe I'm not asking a question, maybe I'm restating what you're saying. We may not see that he's used it for his glory because we can't understand. This is what we just said.
Nice.
He might be, he is, might be, as I'm using language that I'm like, oh, am I using the right words? He might be and is using everything. We trust that he's using everything for his glory. Would that be right? Would that be a fair statement? And so if we may not see it until eternity, but I want to believe, trust, have confidence that he's using it in the meantime.
I think that we just can't, I just can't think that these things, like that God's hand isn't even upon that. So even in a situation where something happens and like, I know this, like I have held like my child who has not lived in my hands and asked God those questions. So I understand what this feels like, but I think that there is like, we just can't see that God is void of even that to somehow like redeem that story. So I just think he has touched everything. Even when we don't know. And there's times where we learn about suffering, and we have a suffering God. It shouldn't be a surprise to us. I mean, it is and it isn't. But I just think even in those situations, we can we might not know good that comes till forever. But I think, I don't know, his kingdom is come on earth too. So I think there has to be some sort of redemption in those stories. I hope for those. Maybe that's just wishful thinking, but.
And we got to pray for that, Glenda. That's a great point.
Yeah, good one.
All right, so I actually want to go into a moment of prayer. I want to lead us into a time of prayer. So if you are listening, I encourage you. You already set off the time to listen to this podcast, and so I think often people are like, "Oh, we're going to time prayer. Let's turn this off." But like, I really encourage you. And I think we're going to do this in some of the upcoming episodes as well. we're just going to take 3 minutes to silently pray. And if you're driving, if you're listening to this at work or at home, whatever you're doing, just maybe take a pause for 3 minutes and just hallow God's name. Speak words out that he is holy, that he is so mighty, that he is the all creator, he's all powerful. And just take this moment to be in awe of him. Just take 3 minutes, set that time aside, and come before God and be in awe.
And isn't it good to know there's no right or wrong way to do this? Whatever comes. That's what you get to say. Whatever comes. Yep. Just like your friend riding in the car with you and you're dumping out all your crap on the table.
Yeah, it's personal.
That's how you get to come.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's take this 3 minutes right now. If you're watching, we're going to just put a pause on the screen, and then I'll come back and pray, and then we'll say our goodbyes. Father, you are amazing. You are so great. We bring you praise. We thank you for the amazing works that you've done in our life. And we lay everything out before you, and we say, may your name be made great in every situation, in every occurrence in our life, God. I pray that whatever we're going through in this exact moment, that you would meet us, and that through this moment, people would know who you are, the love that you have, and the power that you have. You triumph over all. You triumph over evil, and we are so grateful. And yet we come before you, and we We ask that you would continue to show your power. May your name be made great. May your name be made holy. Hallowed be your name, God. Amen.
Amen.
All right, friends, that wraps up our show for you guys. We're so happy that you joined us. We're going to see you guys again next week. See you guys later.
Bye,
See you,
everybody.
everyone.
Hey, everybody.